What if the deadliest signal in the galaxy was silence? Not a weapon, not a threat, just the sudden, unnatural quiet that falls when a group of humans stops talking in the middle of a battlefield. For years, alien commanders begged them to shut up, to stop with the jokes, the questions, the endless noise. But no one ever asked what happens when they finally do. Until one day, on a forgotten moon called Kyvex Delta, the humans paused. And everything changed. Before we start, please, and please, click that card button in the top right corner to subscribe now. And be sure to ring the notification bell so you never miss a single one of our epic daily stories the moment they drop. There's a pinned comment on this video, and aliens hide the answer in plain sight. Can you outsmart them? Crack the pinned comment question to prove humanity's brain power reigns supreme. Watch every second till the end of the story. I'll be waiting for your answer. Let's dive into the story. The Galactic Core Command Hall pulsed with quiet tension, every species present holding their breath, if they had lungs. 36 delegates from across the Confederation watched the glowing red words flicker across the main display. Emergency Behavioral Override, Protocol 9K Theta activated. Admiral Solari's wings twitched sharply, sending a metallic chime through her transparent flight chamber. She whispered under her breath, her voice barely audible but heavy with implication. They paused, did they not? No one answered. They did not need to. The humans had done it again, halted mid-combat, without warning, without explanation, without asking. And for those who had seen it before, that stillness was far more terrifying than any explosion. 6 weeks earlier, it had all begun on the rust-colored moons of Kyvex Delta, a former mining outpost turned black zone, overrun by the Trinix Marauders. Commander Olin of the Dranar Collective had been the first to respond. He took pride in precision, discipline, and 300 years of unbroken operational manuals. He had expected compliance. He got Earth's response team instead. They arrived late, loud, casual, unshaven, and completely out of formation. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with a scar like lightning across his jawline, sauntered out of the ship holding a sealed pouch in one hand. "We heard y'all were having a party," he said, flashing a grin that bordered on criminal. "Thought we'd bring the snacks." Commander Olin narrowed his eyes. "You are late. This is not a celebration. This is a military containment operation." "Even better," the human said. "We brought extra jerky." He tossed a packet to one of his squad mates, who caught it without looking and immediately tore it open. The air filled with the scent of smoked meat. Olin's dorsal vents hissed in agitation. "Is this your idea of combat preparation?" "No, sir," the human replied, popping a piece into his mouth. "This is our idea of surviving the briefing." Admiral Solari, observing from the command dais above, clicked her exoskeletal fingers against the console. "Lieutenant Bishop," she said crisply, addressing the human squad leader, "you are aware that your squad's arrival has delayed the full unit's tactical alignment by 11 minutes and 32 seconds. Bishop gave a mock salute, then leaned against a wall that very clearly had a "do not lean" sign in 4 languages. "Would have been 10 minutes, he said, but Corporal Juno dropped her boot in the recycler. Again, it was making a squeak, the red-haired woman beside him muttered. "Every time I stepped, it sounded like a space duck in heat." "I do not even want to know what that means," Olin muttered. Bishop just smiled. "Relax, Commander. We read the brief. In and out, secure the facility, no unnecessary bloodshed. We are not here to be heroes." "Good," Olin snapped, "because you do not look like them." Bishop leaned forward, his voice dropping an octave, the humor vanishing from his eyes. "Looks are for recruitment posters. Results are what we deliver." Solari tilted her head, studying him. "You sound confident." Bishop straightened up. "No, admit it. I sound calm. You will know when we are confident." "And how exactly will we know that?" He gave a sly smile. "When we go quiet." There was a pause in the room, not the kind filled with confusion, but the kind that tastes like electricity before a lightning strike. No one in the hall knew it yet, but that moment would mark the beginning of a shift in galactic warfare doctrine. Because for the first time, the pause had already begun. The first strike hit the ridge just before dawn. The sky over Kyvex Delta turned a violent purple as the Trinex Marauders opened fire from the high ground. Precision plasma bolts cut through the atmosphere like angry comets. The Confederation units scrambled to cover, ducking behind jagged rocks and shattered mining equipment. Commander Olin bellowed into the comms. "Return fire. Flank from the western rise. I want their eyes buried in the sand." Units from the Vexery and Dranar split off, weapons blazing with synchronized fire protocols. It was textbook execution, until it very nearly turned into a textbook failure. The humans had not moved. Lieutenant Bishop and his 12-person squad stood exposed in the open, facing the ridge, not firing, not flinching, just still. "What are they doing?" Olin demanded, watching them through his tactical feed. "Why are they not firing back?" Admiral Solari adjusted the hollow display in front of her, tilting her head in that insect-like way she did when puzzled. "They are observing," she said. "Observing what?" Olin snapped. "The geometry," she said softly. "And the enemy." Back on the field, Juno adjusted her visor and squinted through the smoke. "Those shots are not trying to kill us," she murmured. "Yeah," muttered Collins, a wiry sharpshooter with a nose that had been broken at least 3 times. "They are hurting us. That is suppressive fire, not lethal targeting. They want us in the canyon." Bishop nodded once. "They are baiting the kill box." Olin's voice roared over the shared channel. "Human unit, withdraw and regroup. You are exposed." Bishop tapped the comm. "Negative, Commander. Hold your line. Are you disobeying a direct?" "We are not retreating from amateurs," Bishop cut in. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the human squad moved. Not like soldiers under fire, more like dancers in a perfectly choreographed sequence. 3 split left, 2 dropped prone. Juno vaulted onto a rock, drew a small cylindrical device from her belt, and lobbed it high into the air. It hovered, and then it sang. A low-frequency pulse, undetectable to most species, rippled through the battlefield. The Trinex plasma cannons glitched and whined, sensors scrambled by the sonic disruption. Within seconds, half their forward gunners were blinking in confusion. Bishop grinned. "Showtime." Collins fired once. 1 shot, 1 cannon down. 2 more humans flanked the ridge, using the blind spots the Trinex had left in their haste. They never saw it coming. The entire operation lasted less than 5 minutes. By the time Olin's flank reached the ridge, it was already over. 6 Trinex were tied up in their netting. One was nursing a broken mandible and muttering something about blue-eyed demons. The rest had fled into the lower tunnels. Olin stared at the scene, dumbfounded. "You were outnumbered," he said. "We paused," Bishop replied. They did not. Admiral Solari's wings gave a thoughtful flutter. "That tactic," she said slowly. "It was not rehearsed, was it?" Bishop shook his head. "Nope, just instinct." "And you all had the same instinct?" she asked. He looked back at his squad, who were already opening rations and debating whether Kyvex's sulfur geysers smelled more like rotten eggs or burnt coffee. "Yeah," Bishop said with a smirk. "That is the scary part. The deeper they went into the Kyvex facility, the stranger it became. What was once a mining complex now resembled a forgotten tomb. Walls were covered in bizarre symbols, and machinery reassembled into unrecognizable shapes. Even the air felt wrong. Too still, too quiet. Something was watching. Corporal Juno walked with one hand on her weapon, the other tracing a charred etching on the wall. "These markings," she muttered, "they look almost ritualistic." "Maybe the Trinex found religion," Collins replied, keeping his rifle ready. "Or they're just bored and got into abstract interior design." Bishop scanned the area ahead with narrowed eyes. "Watch for layered traps. The last squad to come through here lost half their drones. Actually, Piped up, Lance, their communications tech. They lost 7 out of 10 drones, and 2 of those were eaten. Eaten? Juno blinked. By what? We're still figuring that out. Olin's voice crackled over the squad channel. Report, fire team, Echo. What is your status? Bishop keyed his mic alive. Curious and slightly unnerved. That is not a tactical report. No, but it is an accurate one. A brief silence followed. You are approaching the lower generator rooms, Olin said. Thermal scans indicate multiple heat signatures. Proceed with caution. Do not engage until backup arrives. Bishop nodded, even though no one could see it. Understood, Commander. He looked over his shoulder. You heard the man. Eyes open, mind sharper. They moved through the next corridor in silence. Then, just before the entry to the generator room, the squad stopped. Not from the command, not from fear. They just paused. No words, no gestures. A stillness that stretched for seconds too long. From her observation deck, Admiral Solari leaned forward. They're doing it again. Olin frowned. What? That pause. They are hesitating. No, she said. They are reading. Inside the corridor, Bishop's eyes scanned the floor. Scorch marks, dust trails, drag patterns that stopped midway. Something had been here. Something big. Something smart. He exhaled slowly. They set a pattern, he said softly. What do you see? Juno asked. They want us to think they ran. They did not. They doubled back. How can you tell? Bishop pointed to the ceiling. No fresh dust, meaning they used the overhead ducts. And those, he pointed to a line of pipes, have weight imprints. They are right above us. Juno swore. Whole squad. Feels like it. He tapped his comm. Command, hostiles overhead. We are initiating the vertical extraction protocol. No time to wait. Negative, Olin replied. Fall back and wait for backup. We paused to think, Bishop said, not to second guess. Then he looked up, raised a hand, and clicked once. 3 humans leapt, firing grappling hooks into the ceiling vents. A second later, the ducts erupted in screams, gunfire, and bodies. Admiral Solari let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. They are not just warriors, she said. Olin folded his arms. Then what are they? Solari watched as the humans dropped back down, dragging unconscious Trinex from the shadows. They are predators who learned how to study their prey. The explosion rocked the northern wing of the facility, sending vibrations through the floor like the heartbeat of a wounded beast. Commander Olin gripped the edge of the command table, his eyes wide. What was that? Admiral Solari, already on her feet, tapped the feed. A camera blinked to life, showing dust, twisted metal, and smoke curling out a collapsed hallway. Seismic rupture? Olin asked. Negative, Solari replied. That was deliberate. Another screen flickered on. Bodies. Trinex bodies. Scattered across the corridor like discarded armor pieces. No signs of firefight. No signs of panic. Just clinical, controlled elimination. Then came the silence. Bishop's voice had not crackled over the comms in nearly 10 minutes. Not a single human had reported in. No yokes. No chatter. Nothing. They have gone quiet, Solari said, her voice now a low hum. Olin's mandibles clicked together in alarm. They are injured. No, Solari whispered. They are planning. Inside the facility, the human squad moved like ghosts through the smoke. No words, just hand signals. Eyes that scanned every detail. Feet that made no sound. They had entered what Juno once called the still space. A mode where every breath served a purpose and every pause sharpened the blade. Collins crouched beside a disabled Trinex sentry drone. Trap, he mouthed silently. Bishop nodded, pointed to the ventilation shaft above. Climb. They vanished into the ductwork. Above them, the Trinex were preparing for what they believed was a frontal assault. The trap had been laid, but the humans never came through the front. They came from the ceiling. The ambush was fast, brutal, and wordless. Collins neutralized the first sentry with a modified stun rod, pressing it against the base of its skull. Juno disarmed 2 others using only a zipline cable and elbow grease. Bishop tackled the commander straight into a rack of fusion cores, pinning him with precision. None of them spoke. Not a sound. At the command post, the Confederation officers stared at the feed in awe. The humans were disabling a platoon 3 times their number with military ballet, as if violence had become a language only they were fluent in. One officer finally said what they were all thinking. They are not just executing a mission. They are performing it. Protocol 9 Fida, Solari said softly. We are watching it unfold in real time. Olin leaned forward, eyes fixed on Bishop's cold expression as he zip-tied another Trinex to a steel pillar. This level of coordination, it is unnatural. No, Solari replied. It is human. Just then, the main feed flared. A Trinex squad, unaware of what happened above, entered the central corridor. Waiting for them were 3 humans dressed in scavenged armor. Still, silent. The Trinex hesitated. Then they opened fire, but it was too late. The 3 humans moved in unison, one ducking, one flanking, the third leaping over a crate with the kind of reckless grace only the desperate or the dangerous possess. The firefight lasted 13 seconds. When the dust cleared, only the humans stood. They did not gloat. They did not speak. They just paused. And in that pause, the Confederation finally understood what it meant to be hunted by something that thought before it struck. The lower levels of the Kyvex facility were a maze of shadows and humming machinery. Red emergency lights pulsed along the walls, giving the entire corridor a heartbeat. The deeper the human squad pushed, the less oxygen, the more static, and the heavier the silence became. Bishop raised a fist. The team halted immediately. No words. Nobody wastif. Just a sudden, unified stop. Behind him, Juno tapped his shoulder and gestured toward a ventilation fan. It was spinning too slowly. Collins pointed at the floor. Fine white dust had been disturbed. No wind. No vibration. But footsteps. Eyes up, Bishop mouthed. They were close. Far above, in the command center, Commander Olin leaned over the table, arms stiff, expression tighter than ever. They have not checked in for 20 minutes. They are fine, Admiral Solari replied calmly. How can you be sure? She turned toward him and said, because if they were not, we would already be hearing explosions. Inside the generator chamber, the temperature dropped by 5 degrees. Collins wiped his forehead and gave a low whistle through his teeth. It is cold enough to keep corpses fresh down here. Juno muttered, let us not make that a self-fulfilling prophecy. The squad split silently, spreading out like ink across a page. Bishop and Lance took the central catwalk. Juno moved along the pipe scaffolding above. Collins slid between 2 humming coil reactors, scanning every crevice. Then Lance stopped. His hand hovered above a keypad. Bishop gave a slight shake of the head. Not yet, he mouthed, but it was too late. A thin blue wire snapped beneath Lance's boot. Everyone froze. A low hum began to rise, growing sharper, a scream without sound. The lights flickered. Then they came. Trinex soldiers poured in from hidden doors, weapons raised, armor gleaming under flickering light. Dozens of them. Too many. And still, the humans did not speak. They moved. Juno dropped from the scaffolding like a hawk, knees bent, rifle up, firing before she hit the ground. Collins whipped his blade free and took out the first 2 targets with surgical strikes. Bishop grabbed Lance and shoved him into cover, then activated a sonic mine with a flick of his wrist. The detonation was clean, a pulse, a blink, and half the chamber collapsed. The battle lasted less than a minute, and through it all, not one human spoke. Back at command, a junior officer gasped. They are going to die in there. Solari stood unmoving, watching the feed. No, she said. They are adjusting. Then Bishop's voice finally came through the channel, calm and clear. Facility breach contained. The hostile squad was neutralized. Minor injuries. preparing to move on primary objective. Commander Olin looked stunned. You were surrounded. Bishop's voice crackled with restrained amusement. Briefly, you had no plan. We paused. We found one. Admiral Solari allowed herself a rare smile. Protocol 9 Theta, she whispered. The pause before the storm. The room was dark. Not dim, not low-lit dark. The kind of darkness that presses against your skin and listens to your heartbeat. The human squad stood just outside the final chamber, weapons lowered, breathing steady. Bishop turned toward the others and raised his palm. Stop. Juno nodded. Collins checked his remaining cartridges and gave a slight shrug. Lance closed his eyes, listening. They were not in a rush. They were in a pause. Inside that chamber, the Trinix were preparing to flee. Their stolen data cores had already been packed. Their prototype weapons loaded into crates. But something was wrong. Too quiet. No resistance. No sign of pursuit. Commander Rizik of the Trinix peered at his sensors. Where are they? He snarled. His second-in-command, a nervous soldier with a shaky grip, answered, They have not breached the final perimeter. Then why do I feel like we are being hunted? Rizik muttered, and he was right. The humans were not storming the room. They were already inside. Collins emerged from the shadows behind the crates, silent as a ghost. With a quick flick of his wrist, he disarmed 2 guards before they could blink. Juno dropped from a vent above, her boots slamming into the floor beside the data cores. She raised her rifle, but did not fire. Drop it, she said, her voice sharp as a blade. Rizik turned in time to see Bishop step through the side door, the one no one had guarded, the one they assumed was locked. Hello, Commander, Bishop said casually. Lovely setup you have here. Rizik snarled. You should not be here. And yet, Bishop replied, Here we are. At that exact moment, the door behind the Trinix burst open. The remaining soldiers rushed in, raising weapons. Juno narrowed her eyes. Do not, she warned. Too late. The firefight that followed was a blur of light, sound, and motion. But once again, no human spoke. They moved with unnatural harmony, like a pack that had rehearsed the exact flow of violence 1,000 times in silence. Lance slid under a table, popping a flash charge that blinded half the room. Collins took down 3 enemies with a sweeping arc of his knife. Juno used a broken drone as a shield, firing from behind it with calm precision. Bishop walked through the chaos like it bored him. The last Trinix dropped his weapon and threw up his hands. I surrender. I surrender. The room went still again. Bishop exhaled, then tapped his comm. Command, this is Fire Team Echo. Target secured. Data cores recovered. Enemy neutralized or detained. A pause. Admiral Solari's voice came through, laced with something dangerously close to admiration. Confirmed. Sending pickup team. There was a rustle on the line, then Olin's voice. How did you know they would be in that chamber? Bishop glanced around at the wreckage, the stunned prisoners, and the smoldering remains of bad decisions. We paused. He said simply, They did not. And if you had been wrong, Bishop smirked. Then we would have paused again. In the observation room, Solari turned to her aides. Draft it, she said. Full protocol. They blinked. Based on what? She looked at the silent footage of humans moving through the dark, unstoppable and unreadable. Based on a pause that saves lives, she replied, and the silence that wins wars. 1 week later, the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Confederation stood in tense silence. Not the awkward silence of unspoken words, but the heavy, expectant kind, like a drumbeat holding its breath. Representatives from 36 species sat in their respective chambers, facing the central platform where a single human stood, Lieutenant Bishop, wearing his field armor and that familiar, unreadable smirk. Behind him, 3 large screens replayed key moments from the Kyvex Delta operation. The stillness, the sudden violence, the precision, the quiet. No music, no narration, just the cold, clinical sound of silence, followed by results that left the room breathless. When the footage ended, a low murmur rippled across the tiers. A photosynthetic envoy blinked in patterns of confusion. I do not understand. Your unit ceased communication for nearly 35 minutes. That should have qualified as operational failure. Bishop stepped forward. No, that was us thinking. Thinking, another delegate echoed, voice sharp. In the middle of a firefight, especially then, Bishop said, you think fast, move faster, and trust each other to do the same. A vexary general clicked his mandibles. Without orders? Orders are plans, Bishop said, his tone calm. We train so hard that we do not need them in the moment. We trust the pause more than we trust noise. Admiral Solari stood at her podium, wings folded neatly behind her. She addressed the chamber. I am proposing Protocol 9K Theta be formally added to the Confederation Combat Codex. A digital gasp moved across the room. One of the Draenor counselors rose slowly. You want us to approve an alert protocol for when humans stop doing anything? Not doing anything, Solari corrected. Thinking, calculating, reconfiguring the battlefield. Commander Olin, seated to her left, leaned into his mic with a reluctant sigh. I watched them. Every moment, they turned a collapse into a victory using instinct, pattern recognition, and, yes, pauses. He looked at Bishop. I still do not trust their methods, but I trust the results. Bishop gave a polite nod. Appreciate that, Commander. Another voice chimed in, Corey, a senior analyst from the Vazari Mindstream Collective. We ran simulations. When human units enter this state, they are 37% more lethal, 41% more efficient, and 90% more unpredictable, which is why, Solari continued, the protocol is not for them. It is for us. So we do not interrupt something we do not fully understand. A beat of silence. Then the holographic vote chamber glowed to life. Within 2 minutes, the decision was made. Protocol 9K Theta approved. Bishop looked around, folding his arms. So we get now? A few chuckles. One photosynthetic let out a puff of pollen, laughter in their species. Solari walked over and extended a hand. Your people confuse us, she said. Often. But today, you taught us something we have forgotten. And what is that? Bishop asked. That stillness, she said, can be just as powerful as action. And sometimes, silence is the loudest warning of all. Bishop grinned. Now you are starting to sound human. As he turned to leave, a junior officer whispered to Solari. Should we ask them to train us in the pause? She watched Bishop walk away, the quiet weight of his steps echoing through the chamber. No, she said softly. You do not train the pause. You earn it. Outside the hall, Fire Team Echo stood waiting by their drop shuttle. Juno looked up as Bishop approached. So, she asked, did they buy it? Bishop shrugged. They bought the silence. Colin smiled. Then maybe next time, they will learn to listen to it. The door closed behind them. Engines flared, and the humans, as always, left without a word. Because some legends do not need to be shouted. They only need to pause. Here is the story's end. If you enjoyed and want to watch more thrilling sci-fi adventures, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Dive into epic battles, explore distant galaxies, and join brave heroes as they fight for survival against impossible odds. Let us know in the comments if you want the next chapters to be published soon. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and become part of the journey. Together, we'll keep the last light burning. Subscribe now and let the adventure continue.